Apply online and get a quick decision.
Visit Kabbage.com or call 855-KABBAGE to get $100 back when you take your first loan. That's 855-KABBAGE with a K. Credit lines and pricing are subject to periodic review and change. This is not a revolving account. Individual requests for capital or separate installment loans. All Kabbage business loans are issued by Celtic Bank, the Utah Chartered Industrial Bank, member FDIC.
Homeowners, would you like to save money each and every month? Of course you would. We all want to save money, but how? By calling Debbie at I Will Advisors. That's how. And have her review your homeowner's policy. Most homeowners never review their policy, but it should be reviewed every year. You commercial property owners, same goes for you. So what are you waiting for? Call Debbie at I Will Advisors and start saving money. 954-753-8080. 954-753-8080.
Keeping our eye on your piece of the pie. South Florida's Money Talk Radio, WSBR.
Want to lower your rate and payments, get rid of mortgage insurance, or get cash out? Find out about your best refinance options by tuning into the Get Mortgage Fit radio show with Alex Michaels and Carrie Kasem, Monday mornings from 10 to 11, where you'll learn everything you need to know about mortgage loans, today's rates, FHA, VA, and more. Call the Get Mortgage Fit show Monday mornings from 10 to 11 on WSBR at 800-827-RATE. 800-827-RATE, or visit them online at newamericanfunding.com, NMLS 6606.
The following message is brought to you by the Florida Division of Emergency Management, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Many types of disasters can lead to you and your family being evacuated from your home. Fires and floods can occur in any part of Florida, and you may need to evacuate when these threaten. People in coastal communities need to be prepared to evacuate when hurricanes and tropical storms strike. Evacuation should be a part of your overall family preparedness plan. Keep yourself and your family safe. Get a plan.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Seibel. I'm excited to announce my new show called Ask Robert, which will be on Fridays from 3 to 4 p.m. I'm an attorney and public speaker. I began my career in Wall Street and formed my own law firm over 30 years ago in New York and Florida. I've specialized in tax planning for celebrities and high-income individuals, as well as representing corporate and international business transactions. I am currently associated with a global commercial real estate and business financial company. On my show, we'll be covering stock market wrap-up for the week, as well as mortgage financing, investing, real estate, insurance law, and other general subjects of interest to you with my very fascinating guests. I also plan to have a special Ladies' Day 1 week a month to cover issues of greater interest to women, such as divorce, social, and financial matters, with very special female guests. Now, let's on with the show. Good afternoon. This is Robert Seibel. Welcome to Ask Robert, the Women's Prophet, and I'm delighted to be with you again today. Again, I want to just tell you why the show is in existence. I dedicate this show to helping women with their financial and legal issues. I found that there are plenty of men on television talking to men, and there are lots and lots of women that are talking to women, and yet there are only two men that I know of, Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil, that are men talking to women. One who talks about medical issues, the other one talks about relationships. Well, I'm going to be the fellow who answers the questions dealing with legal, financial, and domestic issues with my background as an attorney and businessman. We can be reached on the screen. It's not there, but the call-in number is 888-721-0074. Again, 888-721-0074. You can call in later in the day. Now, you can catch the show on AM 740 AM, FM 96.9 and 103.9 FM, as well as on Facebook. You can enter Ask Robert INC, or on YouTube, Ask Robert INC, and you'll be able to get the show live streaming. Of course, you can get it on YouTube even after the show airs, at any time, day or night, any day of the week. You can get it next month if you like, and you can get my past shows as well. So with that said, I want to just say that I'm sure all of you, particularly the ladies, are aware of what's been going on in the news these last months. We've seen people like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Matt Lauer, Kevin Spacey, and others, including Eric Schneiderman, the former Attorney General of the state of New York, be accused of abusing women in various capacities. It's a horrible thing, and it's a good thing, however, that these people, men particularly, are finally getting exposed for the outrageous people that they are, and women certainly don't deserve to be treated this way. And I met a lady just this past week who's my guest today. I'm delighted to have appear for today's session. Her name is Johnny Adamo, and Johnny is going to be speaking about narcissistic men. What an ideal topic to speak about during this Me Too movement that we're talking about. This is going to be all about men who make women basically miserable while taking advantage of women, which is kind of a one step away from physically really abusing women, which is a subject that's been always near and dear to me. So without much further said, I'd like to introduce Johnny now. How do you do? Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Robert. It's really nice to be here.
Very good.
And it was great that we met this week on the topic of dating red flags, how to avoid narcissists, scammers, and other toxic people to help you find someone that is right for you.
Right, wonderful. Good, good. Well, we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to ask you the first question, Johnny. How did you get involved in educating the public on identifying narcissists and predators, etc.? Give us a little idea.
Okay. Well, just to give you a little background on me, I am a licensed mental health counselor, and I specialize in marriage counseling, couples counseling, relationship coaching, and it is my joy to assist and support couples to bring them together, to bring back their spark, to bring their communication online, to bring them together through a crisis. Right. I also support individuals who are divorcing to heal their heart and their broken heart and reinvent themselves and embrace a life that's worth, embracing. And my last piece, and this is what brings me here, is that I myself became a target of a sexual predator after my divorce. And for most ladies who are leaving a long-time marriage, a long-time relationship, if they have not dated in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, we are big-time targets of scammers and sociopaths and predators, and I did not know that. So now that has become my business to educate the public on the red flags, what to watch out for, especially if you're coming out of a long-term marriage or a divorce, a long-term relationship. The world has evolved dramatically, and the online world has helped, unfortunately, a lot of these predators really become even more destructive in their game. So starting with narcissists and sociopaths, basically these individuals are people who target others for exploitation. It's all about them. It's a one-sided relationship. There's a lot of emotional abuse that goes on. The emotional abuse is hard to detect because they're also quite sweet and charming, and they tell you that they love you, or they're bringing a lot of gifts to you, so you think, oh, okay, they're making mistakes, but reality, it's all a game. They know what they're doing, and it's all about exploiting their partner. So it's good to be aware what the red flags are, so you don't get mixed up with one of these predators.
By the way, I forgot to mention that you are the founder of Fearless Love. That's your presentation, and I believe you told me that you've got a book that you've put together that you're looking to have published very shortly.
Yes.
Maybe you're looking for a publisher.
Yes, actually, yes. I am the founder of Fearless Love, relationship coaching and counseling, and I've written a book called Love Trauma, and it's based on my healing. It's what I put together to heal myself and go through the journey of understanding the chaos that I was in and the wound that I was dealt with because of this relationship that I had had.
Yeah.
So now this book is ready for publication. I'm actually seeking a publisher. So if there's a publisher listening right now or an agent, I would love it if they would contact me or contact us here or my website, which is fearlesslove.net. Contact us and make connection with me. Again, the book is about emotional, sexual, and spiritual recovery after a relationship with a sexual predator, which he's a narcissist / sociopath, because the sociopath just takes narcissism to a new level. Well,
I witnessed your presentation live this past week, and slide presentation, which was really excellent, very, very clear and very explanatory. And I took a lot of notes, I must tell you. It was a learning experience even for myself. So I would heartily endorse what you have to say, and that's pretty much why I've invited you to be on the show today. Let me ask you, what are the red flags now that a woman should look for?
Okay, so today I want to discuss 5 red flags that a woman should be looking out for when she is dating, so she can avoid the narcissist, the predator, the scammer, because they're very slick and they're very good at what they do. The first red flag I call the charming and disarming play. Okay? So they're going to be very sweet, they're going to be alluring, they're going to be very silly, they're going to have you laughing, they're going to amuse you, and you're going to be taken off guard. That's the whole purpose of it. Right. So when you are dating and when you're out, and even in the workplace, if you are sensing that someone is just being a little bit too charming, I want you to start recognizing that charming is a verb, not a noun. So I want you to think, this person is charming me. Okay, this person is charming me, not they're charming, but they're charming me. So that means that they're controlling you through allure, sweetness, and just like this tenderness, or whatever it is that they're doing, silliness, but it's a form of control to lure you in.
Right.
And with the sociopath that I was involved with, that was one of his traits. He was extremely charming, and he had me laughing and amused continuously, even when I was very, very angry because of some of his behaviors. He could quickly, and I noticed that because I'm very introspective, and I would notice, I'm like, how does this happen to me, that I go from being very angry because of a certain behavior that he just displayed to becoming extremely sweet and like laughing, and now all of a sudden he has me laughing because he just did something very sweet and tender and adorable and cute. And I would shift from the anger to laughing and being connected with him and staying in the moment with him. And I recognized that while I was in the relationship, which I had never experienced that before in my life. I never have been in a relationship with anyone where my emotions can shift so quickly like that just by his utterance of a word or two. So watch out for individuals who can shift your emotions that quickly. Yeah. They're emotional manipulators. This is why you need to start looking at these red flags. Now, the red flags are for you to start looking at patterns of behavior. So one red flag may not tell you that you're dealing with a sociopath or a narcissist or a scammer, but you want to start counting these red flags. I count 3. If I have 3 of any combination of these or 3 of the same thing over and over again, I have my answer. This is an emotional manipulator. This is a person that I am not emotionally safe with. Okay? So that's the first one.
Okay.
The second red flag that I want to discuss is called, I'm naming these as intrusive and evasive play. What this means is that the predator is really good at interrogating you, but in a way that you don't even know that you're being interrogated. So you're releasing a lot of personal information about yourself, your lifestyle, your preferences, and things, you know, in your life that he wants to know about. He wants to ultimately know about the kind of man that you want so that he can replicate that and give you that, because he's an actor. Sociopaths, narcissists, scammers, they're actors. They're very good at mimicking us. So they will display the traits that you're looking for and speak the language that you speak so that they can gain your trust. So they're very good at being intrusive and yet being evasive for themselves. So every time you ask a question, so you would have asked someone maybe like, have you been married before? And their response is, oh, I've been in long-term relationships. So he didn't really answer your question. He gave you another answer. From that, you would need to do a follow-up question to verify if he's been married or not and how long have his relationships been. So as a woman, you want to be the one who's asking most of the questions. As the women, we need to give out less information and ask more questions. We are in charge.
Good point.
Of the getting to know process. So you're looking for a reliable and responsible person, and men are generally pretty concrete And so when you ask them a question and they're not playing games with you, they will give you a concrete answer. Yes, I've been married. I was married once, and whatever, it ended 2 years ago, whatever it is. So when you ask a question direct like that and they're not giving you a direct answer, that is a red flag, and especially if they're asking you lifestyle questions. These predators are also looking for people of a certain lifestyle, many of them. The young women are targeted for their youth and their innocence, and then the 35 and over, we are targeted for our emotional assets as well as our financial assets. So if you own a home, a car, if you have a job, or even alimony that's coming to you, this is all stuff that gets targeted.
I understand. Okay. The next.
Okay. The next red flag is the pity play. This one is all these sociopaths and narcissists, they tend to use our compassion, our empathy, and our sympathy against us. They play against our emotions. So watch out for them telling us stories or telling you stories of how they were abused in childhood. In every single story, they will have been the victim.
Right.
In every single story, they would have been the one who had been betrayed. I once went out with a guy for 2 weeks, and by the second week, I counted how many stories he had given me, and he was the victim of all of them, including his boss who betrayed him, the girlfriend betrayed him, the ex-wife betrayed him. Every single story he had given me, the common denominator was him, and in all of them, he played the victim. So I was like, this is not the guy for me.
Right.
I do not need this guy. And I recognize these are all pity plays, because when they tell you these stories, trust me, they sound very believable. They sound like they have been taken advantage of. But the truth of the matter is, usually what they're telling you is the reverse. It's how they've taken advantage of the other person. So think about that. So if you start seeing these displays of, oh, everybody's taking advantage of them, this is a red flag.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So we have a couple more that I want to go over. Some more of these dating red flags.
Very interesting.
The next one I call the boundary testing play. The boundary testing play, basically, they are looking to see how suggestible you are, and they're looking to manipulate you and push through your emotional, physical, psychological, and even spiritual boundaries. They will be ignoring your no. They're going to try to separate you and disconnect you from your no. They're going to try to turn your no into a yes. This is all part of a control play. And of course, for those of us who are dating, we want to put our best foot forward. We don't want to be defensive. So many times they get away with pushing boundaries that we feel uncomfortable with because we don't want to be rude. We want to seem kind. So this is taking full advantage of the situation. I had, with the sociopath that I had been involved in, on our first date, he pushed through and tested a physical and a spiritual boundary all at the same time. And it actually sent me in a bit of a panic because I didn't know what to do, because I felt so awkward. And so I just kind of my brain just kind of went into I stayed kind of like in a frozen state. And then eventually, like when my brain bounced back, I just made a joke. So I used humor to kind of separate and deflect the situation. Diffuse it, exactly. But in reality, if I had known about these predatory games and manipulative tactics that they use, I would have recognized it as, oh, he's testing my boundary, and this is an emotional manipulation. He is taking advantage of me because I am trying to be cordial and respectful and kind and sweet, and I don't want to come across as cold and defensive. No one wants to come across as such in a dating environment. So anyways, so they take full advantage of that, and they start pushing through boundaries, knowing that we would try to be respectful and end up taking their emotional abuse.
Okay. And the final flag?
The final one is the push and pull play. This one has a lot of different names, and it's pretty dangerous. This one's called the tension and suspension. It's love bombing oscillating with unavailability. It's idealization and devaluation. And it's also known as the sweet and mean cycle or abuse and rescue cycle. So it's got lots of different names. This is why I'm naming them all, because some names will stick to you, and other names that may stick to somebody else from a different population. But what's happening here with the push and pull play is there's an intermittent use of reward and punishment, which is highly addictive. So what happens here is with your brain is that it's causing confusion. One minute they're sweet and they're charming, the next minute they're pushing through your boundary and embarrassing you. The 1 minute they are love bombing you, which is showering you with a ton of attention and communication. Then they ghost you and they disappear for an entire week, and you're left dangling and longing and in confusion. And many times this actually even happens within minutes. Once you're involved with a narcissist or a sociopath, it's like being on a roller coaster ride. So watch for the roller coaster ride of emotions. They're constantly creating fireworks of emotions, whether it's from the confusion of what they're doing, frustration because you don't get what's happening, or the love and how they're, showering you with so much attention and care. So what happens in the brain when this starts to happen is your brain goes into survival mode because there's too much conflict, there's too much confusion, and it goes into survival mode. And since they're showering you also with loving things and compliments and whatever, it moves into an addiction, which basically makes you addicted to your abuser. Your fireworks go off, and now you think you're in love, but in reality, they fabricated a sex and love addiction to the narcissist. So now you're operating under an addiction, and you don't have a clue because you're not an addict. You don't behave like that. You haven't had an addictive relationship before, so you have no clue that this is happening in your life. So you now think you have met your soulmate because they have been mirroring your values, mirroring your words, your interests. So you think, oh, I have found my partner in life, and that's not the truth. So then this is why we end up staying in these relationships when we are no longer safe in these relationships.
I see. Very, very illuminating. Let me ask you, do married men perform any differently as narcissists than single men? Are they kind of same patterns? Or, in other words, does a married man behave differently, in your opinion, based on, I know you're not married, but
I'm divorced.
In your opinion,
I was married for 15 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I was the target of a sociopath upon my long-term divorce. Yes.
Okay, well, so then you can tell me
and I work
experience.
with married couples. That's my expertise.
So do you think that a married man might tend to be taking advantage of his wife more than a single man because of the type of relationship? Because now they're married, and so the woman is almost like bonded to him and kind of has to, quote, put up with more than a single woman? Is that be the case?
I think they're exploitive on both sides of the coin.
Right.
Okay. When they're single, they're pursuing multiple women at the same time, and usually a lot of times the women don't know about the other one. This is part of the problem. They pin one against the other. It's just really chaotic and crazy. They ultimately want to trigger your chemistry. They ultimately want you to fall in love with them because then they will dominate the relationship. You will be manipulated and controlled. And that's just the way it goes with them. They do not trust. Therefore, they cannot love. They don't have empathy or compassion. They cannot love. So therefore, all their relationships is about control and dominance. So this is why in the dating and the courting, and you're looking out for these red flags, because all of this is going to tell you this is a sign of a narcissist or a sociopath, and you need to stay away from them. So once they have you hooked, if they marry you or they don't marry you, you're in deep trouble, because now your own biology is working against you, because now you're in love. You're going to see the best in them, and you're going to hope for the best in them, because this is what we do. Love casts a positive bias on those it bestows. So when we're married or we're dating and we're in a committed relationship, we're always going to see their best, and we're going to always encourage their best. So now what happens is you become trapped. That's the problem. Now if you're married or in love with them, you're trapped because your own biology, they make you work against your own self, and they trick your brain to feel that you cannot survive without them, and that's part of the addiction. That's what addiction does to the brain.
Right.
The brain thinks that you cannot survive without your alcohol, your drug of choice, and in this case, it's, you know, the relationship is the addiction or this person.
I see. What are the best defenses that a woman can employ to keep herself from becoming prey or a victim under these circumstances, being with a narcissistic man?
Okay, and that is a great question. Our primary line of defense, if you never heard about these dating red flags, that is fine, because you still have something primal inside of you for survival, and that is called your intuition. And we're going to define that as the ability to understand something immediately without the need of conscious reasoning. It's a hunch. You can't put your finger on it. It's a nagging feeling, and you can't explain it. Remember how I said that on my first date with the psychopath, he had done a boundary testing, and I didn't know that was the case. So I said a joke. Humor is another sign of your intuition. So anytime someone is pushing through and it's an environment that is emotionally unsafe, you can end up saying something humorous, and that's a sign that your intuition is signaling that there's something wrong here.
Okay. And what would be some examples of like a gut reaction? Anything else that maybe you haven't mentioned? Anything else?
Yes, there are a few more things that can come up. Okay. Okay, some other things that will come up for you through your intuition is anxiety, curiosity. Curiosity is also really important for you to know that this is also part of your intuition. Right. These narcissists and sociopaths and scammers work outside of your reality. They do not operate and behave with human dignity, so they don't care about your morals and ethics. They will push through them. So because of that, because they're so different, and they can be so reckless as well and carefree, that we are very curious into who are these people, and then we want to know more, and we stay entangled with them and end up in a relationship with them because they were so fascinating and so thrilling. So when your curiosity keeps being piqued by an individual, consider that also part of your intuition saying, hey, there's something outside of your reality here. Check to see if this person is not really working on an antisocial spectrum. Okay, doubt, hesitation, suspension, apprehension, and fear are all part of your intuitive self and your survival mechanism. Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll resume in a moment. Just want to mention a couple of our sponsors that are producing our show today. First being Frolic Financial. Frolic Financial is led by a gentleman named Mark Frolic. He's a superb estate planner, insurance planner, a very, very bright and creative individual. Mark's been in the business a long time. He's based here in Boca Raton. He's prepared to handle any type of estate planning need, whether you be a man or a woman. Quite frequently, I might add that women whose husbands pass away or get separated, divorced, they need insurance, estate planning, particularly after a husband passes. They want to know what to do. Should they revise a trust, a will, create a new type of estate plan? They have children. It could be minor children, adult children. It's very, very important. You may want to consult with an attorney, but ultimately, a gentleman like Mark is a superb individual to speak with. And Mark has contacts all over Boca Raton to meet your needs. He can be reached here in Boca at 561-807-8707. Again, 561-807-8707. I encourage you to give Mark a call should you have this kind of a need. Another company that I'm dealing with and is superb in what they do is Global Loan. Global Loan is a world commercial private capital lender. They broker transactions virtually from $1 million up to hundreds of millions of dollars all over the world. They handle commercial real estate loans as well as business loan transactions. And in fact, even if you're purchasing a private residence in the name of a corporation or an LLC, they can handle that loan. And they really are extremely experienced. They've been in business over 40 years. They have offices in Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia, as well as New York and Florida. And they cover, as I said, not only the United States, but investments and loans. They can raise debt as well as equity financing. And they can be reached at 800-878-FUND. Again, 800-878-FUND. That's 3863. I encourage you to give them a call should you have that type of need. Our other sponsor, and it's very important to me, I mentioned this in last week's show, any woman or man for that matter who's starting a new business, you could be starting in your kitchen, your garage, on your computer, on the internet, or within a partnership or at a store doing retail, what have you. One of the most important things is that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I'm a big believer in good grooming, both for men and for women. I find that, unfortunately, too many people don't really look good enough and can dress more for success. And you really, the better you look, the better groomed you are. Generally speaking, the more successful you're going to be. I go for my grooming to a place called Salon Oasis. They're at 6100 Glades Road, corner of Andrews, right here in Boca. It's probably the most outstanding salon, beauty salon, full-service salon that I've ever been to, either in New York, L.A., or Miami. They've got unbelievable number of chairs. They do waxing, manicures, hair coloring, hair styling. They've got competent staff up and down the line. The owner of the salon, Michael, is an excellent individual, very, very friendly, and a fabulous hair colorer. And I encourage any of you out there, if you need for that type of service, that you give Salon Oasis a call. They can be reached at 561-482-9610. Again, 561-482-9610. Okay, so now let's get back to our show and to my guest again, Johnny Adamo. And Johnny, why don't you tell us, tell my viewing audience, how can we tell if a relationship is right for us?
Okay,
for a lady.
Okay, well, that's an awesome question. And even before we get into if the relationship is right for us, I have another series of questions that I would like the audience to know that they should be the women should be asking themselves as they're dating to see how this relationship is going for them. And so these are some questions that ladies I want you to ask after a couple of dates. Here are some questions. This isn't what I want to ask yourself, or you want to state to yourself, this isn't what if you qualify for this isn't what I really want, but I don't want to be alone, then this is something that says, you're vulnerable right now and you can become a victim of a predator. I don't feel proud of this person to introduce them to my friends or family. It's important to like the friends that your new person that you're dating, that you like them. If you cannot fit in with their friends and family, this is not the right person for you. I want to help, rescue, improve, or change this person. So if right off the bat you have a checklist of things that you want to change in this individual, not the right person for you. I am acting needy, clingy, or different with this person than I normally do. That means you're probably involved with an emotional manipulator, which is one of these characters we were discussing. I feel frustrated or confused when I am with him or with her, in the company of this person. If you're constantly being frustrated or confused, once again, this person is not emotionally safe for you. Focusing on one important trait is also a problem. So if you're focusing on the fact that this person has money, or it's great sex, or it's fun, and you ignore everything else, also red flag for you.
Be careful.
Okay. The other question you want to ask yourself is, if you're feeling desperate, you will feel desperate if you have just come out of a relationship with a toxic person. So that's going to be natural and normal, but it means you need to get to therapy. You need to call a therapist or someone who can support your healing journey. So some other things that you want to look at in reference to figuring out if this as you're dating someone and figuring out if this fake, or as I call it, is it fake or fearless love? Is this the real thing, or is this once again another fantasy that's being fed by these narcissists? Because the narcissists feed a fantasy, they don't feed reality. So is it fake or fearless? These are some questions that you want to ask yourself here. Does this person make me feel safe or comfortable when I am in his presence and when I am, in a relationship with him or dating him in his presence or on the phone, whatever it is? Does he place my needs at the same level or higher than his?
Mm-hmm.
Does my opinion matter? Is our communication open and honest? Is my no respected? Is my well-being a priority to him? Is he consistent? Is he available? And is he generous? All this means a man, when he is ready to find Mrs. Right or just date and find someone that he wants to settle down with, he is on his best behavior, meaning he wants to put her needs above his own. He wants to be available to her. He sets up the dates in advance. He doesn't call at the last minute and decides that today is Friday and he calls you or texts you to figure out if you're available tonight. He's not putting any effort into organizing the dates or being proactive. So these are things that will show you if he's putting effort to wanting to be with her and being, or with the woman.
I see.
He needs to be able to have, make plans, future plans with the woman as well. So he needs to be able to set up those dates. He needs to want to bring her around to family outings and functions. So all that is planning in advance, planning the future with her. All those things are green light. That you're dealing with someone who cares for you, who's emotionally available, and can create a safe and secure environment for love to grow, because love grows and evolves. There's a few more things that are important for the audience to know, and it's when you're dating or you're out there, the narcissist is going to manufacture a lot of confusion, a lot of self-doubt, anxiety, and desperation. So when those emotions are coming up, please recognize that that individual is unsafe for you. They're emotionally toxic, most likely. A healthy person makes it safe for you to have every part of you to have every part of you show up and be present. And the right person will cherish your most vulnerable and tender parts. Okay, so those tender places that you barely want to show anyone, the right person is going to be very loving and warm and there for you 100%. And I also want to remind the audience, the women, that they are lovable just the way they are. They don't need to transform into anything else. They're just beautiful and worthy of love just the way they are. Because part of the messaging that we get when we are involved with a narcissist is that we are not enough.
Right.
That everything was our fault. That the awful relationship went down the tubes because we did not do enough. And that is a lie from the pit. It is a complete lie manufactured by the narcissist.
Absolutely.
And I also encourage the women to take a risk on a good guy and build a trustworthy relationship. Trust is not granted, so you don't believe anything that initial dating process, when he's communicating initially, you don't really believe anything. You just wait and see. Take that attitude of waiting and seeing.
Right.
But you want to take a risk with a good guy and build a trustworthy relationship, because then you know that's going to go the distance. And I also just wanted to comment on the workplace. Recently, I've gotten a few couples that came in because the wife had been targeted by a predator in the workplace. And of course, for those of us who get targeted by sexual predators, we think it was our fault as well, that the sexual assault was our problem.
Right.
And it's interesting because these are couples that have come in. These are not single women. These are couples. So now I'm dealing with double trauma. I've got the husband who has betrayal trauma, who's dealing with the fact that his wife was flirting and then ended up snared by one of these narcissistic sexual predators. And then I've got the trauma from the wife's end who was sexually assaulted. It's a very complex issue, this sexual assault, and it's always been happening forever and ever. But now we're talking about it, and it's interesting that right now I have a couple of couples that have come in with that situation where the women have been sexually assaulted at work by their coworker, but she didn't know, like she got, again, these guys confuse you, they confuse our brain, so we think we must have asked for this, and it's a nightmare, because then ultimately when it comes out and the husband finds out, then it comes across as a betrayal, because someone else has...
Well, fortunately now, again, what we've been reading in the papers in the last months is finally these type of individuals, granted, I'm sure it's happening in millions and millions of situations across America, but when it starts to happen to very well-known celebrities, it then trickles down, and women across the country start to say, hey, it's happening to me, this certain person has been abusing me, this person has been treating me, sexually taking advantage of me, using me in a power position, maybe he's my employer, maybe he's my husband, maybe he's my boyfriend, he loves himself, he's a narcissist. And hopefully women are going to start waking up and asserting their rights even more, and realizing that they don't have to take this any longer. And going to lawyers and going to advisors and asserting their legal rights and getting out of these terrible situations.
That's correct. Yeah. And like with the couple of scenarios that I'm currently working with, in both cases, the women were vulnerable because the marriage were, they were both in marriages at that point were not happy. So they were very vulnerable. And the problem is that these narcissistic, predatory type of males can smell vulnerability a mile away. So your coworker who sees you down and out when you used to be happy and chipper sees it. And then they invite you to the happy hour, and then they get you drunk, and then they want to do something else, and you, next thing you know, there's something going on that you never invited. And then they feel tremendous amount of guilt and shame. They don't know how to handle it. They swallow all that trauma, and then eventually it comes out, and then they, thank God, they eventually get to counseling. And
what about, again, in the case of Bill Cosby, we learned that he was using drugs to take care of women, particularly Quaaludes, which was the drug of choice back in the 70s and early 80s. They don't exist anymore, methaqualones, but it was a type of drug, it was a tranquilizing drug, which would literally knock women out practically. And if they had a drink or two, they literally didn't know what was going on, and they'd end up having what we know, you heard the expression date rape. There's been other drugs that men have used. I suspect that narcissists probably do employ the use of drugs as well as their personality.
One of the things I actually teach, in the book it's ready for publication, I have in there, and I teach my clients that there's a difference between submission and consent to sexual activity. All victims submit. I'll repeat that. All victims submit. And this is why we get confused as the victims, because we submitted. And most of us don't fight. We don't push them. We don't scream. We don't yell. Our brain goes into freeze. We don't know what to do. We have a trusting relationship with a coworker. We have a trusting relationship with a coach or whomever it is. And then all they have to do is push through the betrayal of the trust. Our brain goes into total confusion, chaos. They get what they want, we blame ourselves. And that is exactly how it goes down. So there is a big difference between submission, which we all submit out of fear, whether it's even just, let's just say if it happens within like your romantic relationship, you submitted out of fear because you didn't want to lose the partnership, or you don't want to destroy a family. These are reasons why we submit. Not just the confusion of what the heck is going on here, but that's a lot of what is happening. The brain is in a state of confusion, and we end up freezing. So there is no fighting, screaming. No one heard us screaming. So therefore, we blame ourselves, because we're like, well, I didn't even fight. What the heck happened? So like in the scenarios also of alcohol, that is, anyone is having sex with a woman who's intoxicated, or a man who's intoxicated, or anyone who's intoxicated, they can't give consent. So therefore, when someone is having sex with another individual who is under the influence of anything that, that's intoxicating, they don't have permission to have sex with that person unless, they're husbands and wife and they're having,
And we
that's,
hear about
but
this every
if it's a
day.
coworker, which is what has happened to some of my clients, it's a coworker, they take them to happy hour and the next thing you know, the woman is drunk because she doesn't drink much and she's being taken advantage of. And then of course she thinks she cheated because she had been flirting with the guy for months, but ultimately he had been targeting her, and this is why the flirting was happening anyway.
Right. There's a phrase that we use as lawyers, a Latin phrase, caveat emptor, means let the buyer beware. In a sense, when a woman meets a man, whether it be in a bar, in a club, a restaurant, first date, or a new relationship, obviously now, especially what you've been saying today, women really have to be much more aware of what they're getting into. And certainly if they go to a bar and they start drinking, well, you better be aware of what could happen an hour from there or 2 hours later. And if you're setting yourself up and imbibing alcohol or taking drugs or getting yourself in a situation, clearly you're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of.
But again, it's if they got taken advantage of, they're still clearly the victim, so they need to deal with the whole victimization and deal with the whole powerlessness and that their power was taken. If you have been sexually violated, you did not give up your power was taken from you.
Right. One of the other features I believe you're going to be bringing in through your book, which you mentioned the other night, something called love trauma. What is that all about?
Oh, okay. That is the name of my book, and the reason I called it Love Trauma is because the protagonist came through a sexually abusive relationship with a psychopath who is an actual sexual predator. So she was still in love with him, and this is what the public doesn't understand, why and how in God's name the victims stay with their predators over and over and over again. And we will defend them, and we can see that they're bad boys. We can't. We think they're actually good people.
Yeah.
And this is part of the whole traumatized brain, damaged brain. They damage our brain. And we can't see the truth. So we have to go through a journey of grief to discern the truth, the lies and the deception that we have been fed, the web that we were caught up in, the fantasy that they created. In order to come out of this trauma, we need to make sense of what really happened in the relationship. So it's love trauma because the victim, the survivor, sees love, is experiencing love, but in reality it was an addiction that the brain was caught up in that was manufactured by the narcissist.
Right.
So it's a journey of healing to get to the other side and making sense of what happened to you, what happened into the relationship, who is this person that you really were in love with, or you thought they were so wonderful, and then to find out they were a narcissist, and they had no capacity to love you. They were only exploiting you. It is extremely sad, but yet there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can have a stronger life, more compassionate life on the other side of your healing. So I do encourage all the women who have been involved with narcissists or sociopaths to get to their healing. There is love and life at the end of this tunnel, and the cycle of abuse can be broken. If you have been sexually assaulted once, the chances are that you will be sexually assaulted and raped again and again and again. It goes up until you go through your whole healing. You have to wrestle with your victimization. You have to accept that your power was taken from you.
One thing I've observed over time is that, and I guess this is just part of the life cycle, as women get older, they get, I guess, in a possibly more vulnerable position because they get a little more anxious about whether they're going to, quote, meet the man of their dreams. Once a woman reaches 35 to 40, her, like they said in that film, My Cousin Vinny, my biological clock is ticking, and am I going to meet a fella? Am I still going to be able to get married? Am I still going to be able to have children? And sometimes I have found that some of those age women perhaps may be a little more submissive because they want to have a relationship. They're more anxious to meet somebody because the time clock is maybe running out on them, as opposed to a woman 20, 25, the 30. What do you feel? How do you feel about that?
I don't know if I'm 100% in agreement, because I think we could all make mistakes, and then we could all be vulnerable.
Right.
I consider myself a smart woman, and I still fell for a sociopath. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I wasn't looking to get married, like the next day. I had just came out of a long-term marriage, so I needed time to heal. I needed to get to myself and, who am I without this marriage, and go through the grief process. So I still got caught up with someone that was not good for me.
Right.
So I think we're as human beings, we're fragile, and we do have vulnerabilities, and we just all need to be aware of that no one is above falling prey to an emotional manipulator and someone who can take advantage of us.
I see. And let's, one of the final questions, how do we know that a lady is in a good relationship? We found, quote, the right guy, a guy that hopefully is not going to be abusive, not going to be the narcissist, not going to be the predator that you've been speaking about for this past hour.
The man is consistent. The man is consistent. He is available.
Right.
And once again, he will embrace your tender parts. He's not oscillating between the love bombing and ghosting and disappearing acts. He's consistent. He's got integrity. He wants to be there for you. And he is concrete when he communicates. These are things that you need to look for and know that this is a safe man. And even if he doesn't talk a lot about his emotions, that's okay. A lot of guys don't. What's important about the emotionally available man is that he's ready for commitment, that he can be there emotionally for her, meaning he can comfort her when she is hurting, and when she needs him, he is there. He can respond to her. But he doesn't need to be spilling out his heart constantly, because that's not necessarily a male trait. They will, you guys will talk about your emotions here and there, but it's not always like the first thing. A lot of women are like waiting for the men to always be talking about their emotions. No, you ladies need to talk about your emotions, and he needs to be able to sit there and listen to you for at least 15 to 20 minutes a day.
Right.
And that makes him very emotionally safe for you. Okay? So we don't need to turn him into like this emotional thing, that needs to be always expressing his emotions. That's actually kind of dangerous, because then the woman will suppress herself to cater to him. So we don't want that role reversal at all. That's dangerous in the relationship. And narcissists do that. They will reverse a lot of our roles where we have to cater to them in everything, including suppressing our feelings.
Okay. Now, when a woman literally says, I love John, I love Jim, this is my guy, and he turns me on, and God, the sex we're having is fabulous, does that, in effect, have the result of blinding a woman, or shall I say, confusing her with regard to how this man treats her the rest of the time? Because we can't be in bed 24/7. We all know that. So what happens?
Oh, yes. Sex is used as a weapon. Love is used as a weapon. Everything is used against you in a narcissistic relationship. And unfortunately, with sex, it triggers the love hormone, so it helps you to continue to stay bonded.
Yep.
And the oxytocin is released, and you have more trust. Every time you make love, you trust him even more.
Yes.
This is part of the honeymoon cycle that they put us through. And then they're back to devaluing and idealizing us, and back to those sweet and mean cycles and abuse and rescue cycles. And that's what I'm saying. They're very addictive. So the sex becomes an addictive tool to keep us locked into the relationship.
Yeah, we've heard the term sex slave all the time. Women that I've known, over the years, that I, not personally necessarily, but of clients of mine or people that I've heard about, where clearly that happens. I tell you, this has been a fascinating hour for me, and I must say that it is so vital for women today to really take what you've said today and remember it, and realize the situations that they come into. Look for the symptoms that you've discussed. Certainly try not to be victim, as you stated. Try to avoid these type of people, and they're out there, and we know they're out. Something that I've seen in my travels is that narcissists, man, they're everywhere, and some of them are womanizers. They're just they're looking for body count.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to say thank you so much for being here today. Gianni, it's been a pleasure. Love speaking to you. You're really informative. Perhaps you'll come back again when your book gets published. Again, I wish you the best and good luck, and hope you find a publisher soon.
Thank you, Robert. I enjoy being here, and if anyone wants to reach me, they can reach me at fearlesslove.net. I have great resources there. My blogs are syndicated worldwide at this point, and I just found out I was being syndicated to the UK last month. So I have lots of great information there that you can find to support your journey of healing or dating.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for listening and watching Ask Robert today. It has been my pleasure sharing with you up-to-date information about the stock market and business, as well as investing, financing, real estate, and other commercial and general subjects. My guests are specifically chosen by me to provide sharp thoughts and ideas on the various subjects affecting the economy in a unique and informative manner. I enjoy answering your calls, and you can reach me at 561-483-2334 or by email at bobseibel, BOBSEIBEL @yahoo.com. Remember, knowledge is power. Dare to be great, because so few people make the effort. This has been Robert Seibel. I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Have a great weekend.